Hello and welcome to the Wayne Hills TV post-NFL Draft Recap Show. My partner Isaiah Ahumada and I, Aaron Hook, as well as Luca Yanuzzi and Jason Pohl a little later, will be recapping the best picks, best team drafts, and giving our thoughts on individual picks from the 2019 NFL Draft. Let's get right into it with Kyler Murray going number 1 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. So Murray going number 1 to the Cardinals was the expected pick. And basically, this pick ended Josh Rosen's one-year tenure with Arizona. He was traded to Miami, and he is probably going to be the starting quarterback there. He's still young. He underperformed in his first year, but definitely a fresh start in Miami is what he needed. Yes. So, what are your thoughts about Rosen going to Miami?
Well, I think it's great for him, and you already have Darnold there, Josh Allen. That's just a great environment for QBs. It's going to be a great division in the future, I think, for these young stars.
And especially with Brady, it's interesting to see the 3 rookies or 3 second-year players now in the same division with Brady, who is the vet and, is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So it's just interesting. And then the return that they got is the 62nd overall pick, which is a wide receiver from UMass, Andy Isabella. So Cardinals got a decent return for Rosen, but it's just interesting that Kingsbury pretty much gave up on Rosen after 1 year and drafted his guy Murray. So just an interesting narrative there. So, and now let's see what Andrew Gerard, a senior at Wayne Hills High School, had to say about the Cardinals pick and what it means for them going forward.
Well, my thoughts are that I think it was a good trade so far for Rosen because last year he didn't perform as they would expect him to be. So I think him being as a rookie, there was high expectations for him, and he didn't perform to those expectations. So I think going to Miami with expectations not being that high would be great for him. And Kyler Murray, I think, is the great pick for them because they need a quarterback like him in order to be better for the next 5 years to come. And I think Larry Fitzgerald deserves it too because as a respected wide receiver throughout the whole league, he needs a quarterback.
So that was some good analysis on the Murray and Rosen trade. So now we're going to move on to the New York Jets, who had the number 3 overall pick, and they took Quinnen Williams, if we can see the draft for that. So they got Williams, who is a defensive tackle from Alabama. A lot of people have called him the best player in this draft, and I know many Jets fans liked him, but some thought that Josh Allen to be the pick here. He ended up falling to Jacksonville at number 7. The Jets need defensive line help as a whole, interior or on the outside, so I think Williams was a great pick for my Jets. So what are your thoughts?
I think Josh Allen is a great player, but Williams, I think, is just much better, and he's going to destroy any line that's in front of him. And the Jets are really have had great draft picks in the last two years, and their defense is getting better each year.
Yeah, I think even with free agency, they brought in C.J. Mosley, and they have a good secondary now with May and Adams too. So I think the Jets defense, which is what they've really been known for, they've really never been known for being a great offensive team. They've been known for being a good defensive team. So now I think they really have a strong unit. And some other draft picks, they picked up offensive line help. Chuma Edoga from USC they got. And then they got Ja'Tai Polite, who's an edge rusher from Florida. That's also another defensive lineman, this time on the outside defensive end, who's going to help them a lot. They also got Blake Cashman, a linebacker from Minnesota. So the Jets really hit hard on defense and offensive line in this draft, which I think, you're right. This is their 2 biggest needs. So let's pause for a second and see what Dylan Orentine, a senior at Wayne Hills High School, had to say about the Jets taking Williams at number 3.
Third pick is Quinnen Williams, Alabama, defensive tackle going to the Jets. I think this is an absolutely amazing pick. They pair him up very nicely with Leonard Williams. I think it absolutely works terrifically. This guy rushes through offensive linemen like it's nothing. He basically slices through them like butter. Perfect 4-3 for the Jets. They're going to rely on this guy for the next couple of years. Perfect for them.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the surprise of the draft, which is the New York Giants. Your New York Giants. I know you didn't like this pick, and I know about 99% of Giants fans did not like this pick. If we can see the draft for the Giants, they took Daniel Jones, quarterback from Duke, at number 6 overall. He was apparently the number 1 quarterback on the Giants board, but most boards didn't have him going in the first round. I'll let you take it away because I know you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, Josh Allen should have been picked here. Giants definitely needed defense. They had the worst defensive rating in our division. Terrible. Daniel Jones, he could have been picked with the 17th pick. I know Dave Gettleman thought maybe the Broncos might get him or the Bengals, but I don't see it. Josh Allen was needed there, and it kind of shifted the whole draft a bit.
Yeah, and a team in your division, the Redskins, picked up Dwayne Haskins, who
yes.
I know you might have liked at number 6. Even if you took a quarterback at 6, Haskins was probably the better option, even locked over Jones. Not a lot of people thought Jones would go number 6. So I mean, the Giants did have a good overall draft though. They got Dexter Lawrence from Clemson, defensive tackle with number 17. I mean, they picked up Julian Love from Notre Dame, who's a pretty speedy cornerback. I know you guys need some secondary help as well. Got a wide receiver in Darius Slayton from Auburn. I mean, you guys had a solid draft. I think it's just the surprise and the shock of Jones at 6 is really just incredible.
I like everything else after the 17th pick because we really went hard on defense. We got great corners. DeAndre Baker, I think he's going to be great.
Right.
Especially learning from our corners, Janoris Jenkins, and our defensive coaches. I think that's a good pick.
Right.
Everything else is I don't know.
So with that being said, let's take a look at what Mark Winnick, a junior at Wayne Hills High School, had to say about the Giants' controversial pick of Jones at number 6.
Jones should not have been picked by the Giants. I think it was a dumb decision. They let go OBJ this offseason, and they let go other number 1s, which are really a dumb move. And the Giants kind of general manager and everyone said that they were going to release these players and try to upgrade. But if you look at their team, what they dropped, they haven't gotten what they dropped in return for what they've done over this offseason. So I think the Cowboys are going to have a really, really fun time going to New York this year. Going to have a fun season, going to easily take the division. Giants are probably going to finish bottom to last. I'm going to give them a second to last. I'll take them that. The Redskins can maybe get last. But, come on. Don't got a number 1 wide receiver. Your quarterback is ancient. Your O-line is struggling. Your D-line is struggling. Your secondary is okay. But, come on. What are you doing? Why are you picking Daniel Jones? Get some sense. Come on. I want it to be a competition this year, but it's not going to be.
All right, and we're back. So now we're gonna discuss probably the most interesting part of every NFL draft, which is guys who are picked in the late round who are sleepers and actually turn out to be really good. We've seen it in the past. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. Yes. Antonio Brown was a 6th round pick. I mean, you have guys who. It's just interesting in every sports draft.
Yes.
There are guys who you can pick late, and they turn out to be better than the guys who were picked up front.
Maybe the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, look at Brady. I mean, the resume and career he's had to be a 6th round pick, and people didn't think he was athletic at all. They didn't see a lot of upside with Brady, but I mean, the Patriots got their guy in the 6th round.
Yes.
So some sleepers. If we did just see the graphic for that, we have Travion Williams, who's a running back from Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a renowned offensive program in college football. I mean, they always put up monster numbers in the Big 12. So Williams, he's going to fit in as a backup. He was drafted by the Bengals. So Joe Mixon is their starting running back. He had a breakout year last year, 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. You have Gio Bernard there. But I think Williams is really talented, and I honestly think that, as a guy who has a combination of power and speed, I think he could fit in really well. So now we're going to move on to Hunter Renfrow, who's a wide receiver from Clemson, who was picked by the Raiders in the 5th round. 49 catches, 544 yards, and a touchdown. He's a middle-of-the-field type receiver.
Yeah, not so much end zone threat.
Yeah, he's a guy who will pick up a lot of yards, but not really an end zone threat. So what are your thoughts on him going to Oakland?
I think that's good. You already got Antonio Brown, so you already have a threat in the end zone. Maybe him to pick up first downs, you can use him, and trick plays.
Right.
I think the Raiders got a good pick.
I think Gruden is going to have a lot of fun with this guy because he's so good at the offensive schemes and stuff like that. And you have a star like Brown who is a deep threat, but you can also throw in to the middle of the field. You can use Renfrow in pretty much any situation to, like you said, pick up first downs or just pick up some yards that you need. And then the final sleeper that we have is Drew Tranquill, a linebacker from Notre Dame, who was picked in the 4th round by the Chargers. We obviously know how good the Chargers defense was last year. At Notre Dame, 63 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss last season. He's a strong, tough player. He loves to play the game. He doesn't have, the size of a traditional, big linebacker. But he has really good athleticism, and his coverage skills are actually higher than most linebackers. He's a guy who can drop into coverage or rush the quarterback if needed. So he's really like a 5-tool player, you could say. So what are your thoughts on him going to LA?
I think it's a great pick. The defense is already great, so why not make it better?
Yeah, right.
What's it called? The Chargers did get exposed by the Patriots in the postseason. Hopefully, they can use them, and they gotta, change a few things around, and maybe it'll get much better.
All right, and that's all we have for now. After a short break, Luca and Jason will be taking over, giving their thoughts on the best and worst overall team draft, the best and worst players in this draft, as well as comparing this year's draft to last year's selections. Stay tuned.
Did you know that the United States spends $11.5 billion on litter cleanup every year?
The most common and largest source of littering is cigarette butts.
The butts contain harmful chemicals that can contaminate water and soil.
Trash can contain diseases that can be passed between animals that eat it.
Many animals mistake plastic and other trash as food, which at times leads to their death.
Litter can contain objects that are harmful to humans, such as needles, blades, or broken glass.
In the Pacific Ocean, there is an island filled with trash that is believed to be roughly twice the size of Texas.
Many organizations are trying to help with America's littering problem.
America Beautiful is an organization that finds a group of people that help clean up and try to put an end to littering.
For more information about Keep America Beautiful, call 203-659-3000.
Back to our Wayne Hills post-draft recap show. I am Luca Yanuzzi. My partner Jason Pohl is on his way to Boston with our Wayne Hills band, so I am joined by Aaron Hook again to go over some highlights of the draft, covering some big highlights, shockers, surprises on the levels of good and bad. So let's start it off with a pretty big shock. DK Metcalf. He went in the 2nd round to the Seattle Seahawks. I potentially could have seen him even going to the Redskins, but him going so late, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there were 2 wide receivers, I believe, taken before him. So he fell to Seattle in the 2nd round. I think it was just obviously we saw at the combine there was the whole thing about the 1% body fat and stuff like that. We saw how physically gifted this guy was, but I think there was just questions about how he could translate into each team's system and stuff like that. Seattle, obviously, they're not. They had Doug Baldwin, who's probably been their best receiver in a long time, but they're not known for having an amazing pass game. They're known now for having a really good run game, and even when Lynch was there, they were known more for their running game. It's just basically how he fits into every team's system, and I think Seattle got a pretty good pickup with him in the 2nd round. I would consider it a steal because we know how physically talented this guy is. In the weight room, and just his athleticism is off the charts. It was just a question of, can this guy help me, on this down in this situation and stuff like that.
Yeah, once I'd heard about that 1.6% body fat,
yeah,
I looked at that and it was like a clickbait article. I'm like, there's no way this is real, and that's actually 100% true.
Yeah.
1.6% body fat, incredibly fit, incredibly fast, incredibly great hands for receiving. I'd say as well, it is a steal for Seattle. So Marquise Brown is our next pick. He went to the Ravens at 25. He seems like, to many, a key player for this Ravens team. So let's see what fellow Wayne Hills TV student Mr. Dylan Oren King had to say about him.
Marquise Brownlee, Oklahoma wide receiver, going to the Ravens. This is a good pick. I like this pick a lot. It allows some very good options for Lamar Jackson to throw to. Very fast guy, of course, the cousin of Antonio Brown. Dominant guy, good athleticism without the attitude. I think this is perfect, and I think if they can keep him in control and, maybe keep him away from Antonio, thank God he's at the Raiders, then he might turn out to be a really good wide receiver in the next coming years.
So now that we've got our analysis on Marquise Brown, I could have potentially seen him going to the Steelers. Jason had him going to the Raiders. What say you on where Marquise Brown could have gone?
I think I'm with you on that. I thought that the Steelers were denim. I think the Steelers made some pretty smart pitch, though, not taking him. He is related to Antonio Brown. I believe they're cousins. But, he went to the division rival instead in Baltimore, and I think they got a really good pickup with him because we saw how Lamar Jackson struggled in the playoffs last year with the passing game and the running game. We know he's a great rushing quarterback, but he needs some help. The times that he does pass, which is less than the times that he rushes, he's going to need some help, throwing the ball. And, I think Marquise Brown has a lot of the similar traits as Antonio Brown does physically. I mean, he may not be the biggest guy in the room, but, he's quick. He can make tough catches. He runs routes really well. He doesn't have the same personality traits as Antonio Brown, which now you could say is a good thing. But I think the Ravens got a really good pick with Brown at 25 because, it's just going to help Lamar Jackson. It can't hurt you to have another, wide receiver who's in the same family as Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I'd say it's so much help to a new quarterback who's been struggling a bit, like you said. But again, Dylan had said in the video they are cousins, and keeping them away from each other can seem more like a good because again they won't try and stay so closely together. And I'd say Ravens definitely have a good pickup on this one. So now we go to Devin White. We filmed a behind-the-scenes outtake where we filmed Dylan going through all 32 picks. So we took a clip from that 19-minute segment on his opinion on Devin White.
Devin White, LSU inside linebacker, going to the Buccaneers. This is very good. They replaced somebody on the Buccaneers. I'm currently forgetting his name. He'll probably be up here somewhere where a replacement. Looking at you, Luca, to make that happen. But in the end, good, solid pick. This guy's going to be somebody they rely on for the next couple of years. Excellent run stopper, really good in coverage. This is a guy they're going to be relying on, and, he should be perfectly fine.
So we got another analysis there. So Devin White going to the Buccaneers. He was my prediction for who the Giants would pick up sixth. Jason predicted right that he could go to the Buccaneers. What say you?
So, I'm with you again on this. I think the Giants could have gotten him at 6. Me and Isaiah talked about how they could have won defense at 6, and they could have taken whoever they wanted, which was Jones in the end at 17. I think this guy's going to be a great player for the Bucs. The Bucs defense. I don't know. The Bucs have just been a franchise that's really been not one to for other franchises to take a blueprint from. They've had their struggles in the past. Even on offense, we've seen Winston, the whole controversy with Jameis Winston. I think adding a guy like this on defense makes their defense a whole lot better, and it just kind of gives them an identity now because, once you have an identity, I think other teams are going to respect you more. I think the Bucs picking up White and getting, a really good, solid defensive player to help them out as a rookie, I think this is really good for them.
Yeah, I'd say especially the fact that he is a rookie, he's going to potentially stay with this team for a long enough time and keep this Bucs defense at a great state where it is right now.
Right.
It really can't get any worse from here for their defense.
Right.
They're just going to keep picking it up constantly throughout the season.
Right. I agree with you. I think if he performs well in his first few years and they give him a big deal, big extension, I think that this guy could be the guy who really shapes this Buccaneers defense. He's going to be a cornerstone of the franchise if he performs really well. He's your first-round pick. If this guy hits on all cylinders, the Bucs could potentially build this whole defense around him. So he's going to be a really important player for them.
All right, so now besides the players that we covered in our previous pre-draft segment, we also asked some other questions to our students and staff here at Wayne Hills, with the first question being the best pick in the NFL draft this year. Let's hear what they had to say about that.
My opinion, I think the Redskins taking Haskins in the middle of the first round, that's the best pick in the draft. You don't fall into above 50 touchdowns thrown in the Big Ten, playing against all these future NFL players that are on those teams. I think with Jordan Reed and all the other weapons they have on their offense, they're getting the LSU running back that was hurt last year. I think just between all those weapons, I think Haskins is in a position to succeed.
All right, so the best draft pick, I would say, in the first round was definitely the Redskins scooping up Dwayne Haskins. They filled the position of big need for them, and the Giants also should have taken Haskins, but that's a whole other issue that I won't get into.
I've got a couple different opinions. First of all, I think that Quinnen Williams going to the Jets, that's definitely one of my top picks there. I mean, he fits so well with Leonard Williams. I talked about this before, but he fits so well with Leonard Williams. And I mean, really, he's just a dominant playmaker. Besides that, I think who might be a really good pick is Montez Sweat going at 26.
So I think overall the best pick would have to be Nick Bosa at 2 to the 49ers. Great all-around player at defensive end. He'll be very helpful, can pressure the quarterback, great on the run, third down and long, fourth down and long situations. He can get pressure and cause havoc, and that's exactly what the 49ers needed. His brother, who plays for the Chargers, has turned out to be an awesome pick for them, and I think Nick Bosa will be the same for the 49ers.
Well, it's tough. As a Giants fan, I got to tell you, I can't tell you the team that had the best pick because I was crying at the time. But whoever got Josh Allen at 7, I think definitely got the best draft pick. Again, I was crying with my head in a pillow at that point. So I don't remember what team it was.
So we got some different opinions from a bunch of students here. Jared Pohl, Jason's brother, and Jared Cohen had said the best pick was Dwayne Haskins going 15 to the Redskins.
So I'm going to have to differ with them. I think Haskins to the Redskins is a really good pick because we saw the injury to Alex Smith last year basically ending his career. So picking up Haskins as your starting quarterback, that we know they have Case Keenum too. It's gonna be a battle between them for the starting job. But I think the best overall pick in this draft was actually the number 2 pick. I mean, it might sound cliche, it might sound simple, but I think Nick Bosa to San Francisco was by far the best pick in this draft. I mean, you look at his physical tools, you look at the kind of kid he is. He is a brother in the NFL who, is playing great for the Chargers. I think Bosa, they missed on a couple years ago. They kind of missed on Solomon Thomas. He hasn't been great. I mean, this is their 3rd year in a row picking a defensive lineman. I think this is the one that's going to work out for them. I mean, I really think he's one of the most talented rookie defensive linemen that we've ever seen, just physically and, just the type of player that he's the mold that he has and, what he's going to become. I think San Francisco putting him at number 2 is a really good pick.
I would agree with you there as well. Jason Coburn was also saying that Nick Bosa has to be the best pick. But I'd also agree with Dylan on his best pick for this one. Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams, both 2 incredible picks. Jets could have gone with Josh Allen like you and Isaiah were saying before, but I think them sticking with Quinnen Williams was a much better decision to make. Just a huge defensive tackle, just willing to wipe out anyone who's in his way. But also, Dylan had said Montez Sweat at 26. I wouldn't say that would be the best pick. I would say that would be the best steal of the draft by far.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan loves this guy. I mean, I agree with him. I think Sweat, I think the Redskins actually had a really good draft. I mean, in the first round, you get Haskins, who your division rival could have taken. You pick him up, and then you with that, you basically create competition for the starting quarterback job, and then you get Sweat, who, if not, like Dylan said, for that heart condition, probably would have been a top 10 pick. I mean, this guy is really, really talented. He's a top 10 talent. So.
All right. Well, after a high of highs, we have to take it down to the worst picks of this year's draft.
Definitely the Oakland Raiders with Clelin Ferrell at number 4. Just discussing with a few people and reading some articles, it was definitely a big reach. And I think they only chose him because he went to Clemson and played in the title game, so his stock was way higher than it should have been.
Well, based on my last prediction, I think the Giants drafting Daniel Jones at 6, that's probably going to be your popular answer. But at the end of the day, I think that's the real answer. He's not going to start this year. If you're really bad like the Giants were last year, you want a guy who could contribute immediately, and Jones is going to sit bench, and even then, his stats don't jump off the page. His combine measurables aren't anything special. I think you definitely could have gotten Josh Allen, another defensive player, where, they just traded away Vernon, where he's going to contribute right away and, contribute for the next decade for the team. And I don't think that's the case with Daniel Jones.
I know this is probably a common thing a lot of people have seen, but Daniel Jones at 6 to the Giants, just overall as a player, he doesn't have the talent to be a top 10 pick or even a top 15 pick for that matter. they definitely reached, and if it doesn't turn out well, they're going to be kind of stuck in the same hole they've been stuck in for the past couple of years for the Giants. So hopefully, I hope it works out for them because Daniel Jones is a great guy. Seems like he has some potential, but right now I'd have to say he was probably the worst pick in the draft.
Well, it's interesting. I think it's obvious to everybody right now that the Giants really reached for Daniel Jones at 6th. A lot of people think he would have been in the 2nd round. If he becomes a superstar, then everybody will be looking back saying they were perfect. You know, remember they thought that when they selected Phil Simms in, 83, with the 7th pick, that it was way too high. But right now it's really looking like the Giants had the worst pick.
And welcome back. We have been rejoined by Jason Pohl, who's made it back from the band trip to finish up our show. Now let's continue on with the talk about this draft's worst pick. So we got a lot of different opinions from the video. Jason, what's your opinion on this year's worst pick?
Well, personally, I think the worst pick has to be the Giants drafting Daniel Jones. You know, they could have gotten a better quarterback such as Dwayne Haskins that went to the Redskins. So I think the Giants had the worst pick.
Honestly, it's sad to agree with you, but of course that is going to be the obvious answer you get from everyone every time when you think of worst pick. The Giants had so many options, like you said, Dwayne Haskins. They even could have gone with Drew Lock, who ended up going in the 2nd round to the Broncos, I believe, at 43. And we didn't even think we were going for a quarterback. We could have been going for a great defensive player like Josh Allen, who wasn't even a super necessary need for the Jaguars. So now, many of the teams this year in the draft made some controversial choices like the Giants did, but most of them were on the bad side as well. Let's hear some thoughts on who, out of all 32 teams, had the worst overall draft.
Worst draft? See, that's where it gets a little bit difficult because just from number 6, Daniel Jones, you could argue that the Giants had one of the worst drafts. However, the other 2 picks that they had in the 1st round were actually pretty decent. They weren't amazing picks. They weren't guys that you're going to be talking about for the next 10 years unless they end up being that way. However, worst draft overall, I'd have to say it's the Raiders. Every single guy they picked, they either reached or they just didn't pick smart. Honestly, they're a team that's stuck back when they had so much success. It showed in the coaching staff they brought in. It shows in the attitude that they have. It's just not a working scenario. And when you can pick at number 4 the best linebacker in the draft and you skip and reach for a defensive end, it shows the kind of mentality that the Raiders are in right now, that they're not in the greatest situation right now. And this draft actually could have set them back instead of setting them forward. They need to pray to God that these picks work out.
Who had the worst draft pick? Well, that's remained to be seen. We'll have to, only years ahead can we really see that. Right now, it's probably got to be the Giants, or at least the most controversial draft pick. But, a couple years from now will be the only way to tell. There was a time when they drafted Achilles Smith first before Donovan McNabb, and Achilles Smith, I think, played for a game or 2 for Cincinnati before he busted. Remember Jamarcus Russell? So there's a lot of things that look like good picks that may not be. But right now, Giants own that honor.
Their picks at 17 and then 30, which they traded up to, those were pretty good picks, but I think their reach at 6 just kind of overshadows everything.
I think overall the Giants, they had so many first-round picks, and just maybe one of the guys, DeAndre Baker, kind of excites me. But overall, there are guys that really they had in the past that played that certain role, but they traded away. Like, for example, the guy they just drafted, Dexter Lawrence out of Clemson. That's basically Snacks 2.0. Granted, he's a lot younger, but if you're drafting a guy in the 1st round, you don't want him to be a 2-down kind of player, defensive tackle or run stuffer. Just, I think they had a lot of draft picks, and I really don't feel like they hit with most of those draft picks.
So we're back. Definitely got a lot of insights from that video. Who do you think had the worst draft overall this year?
Well, I think the worst draft overall, I would say again, would have to be the New York Giants. Drafting the quarterback in the 1st round. They could have gone for say Josh Allen, a defensive end. So I think he'll be the best. I think the Giants could have been a really good pick if the Giants drafted him.
I mean, I say they didn't have the greatest draft, but they had one at least somewhat redeeming pick with DeAndre Baker. But Texans also didn't have the greatest draft either besides their first overall pick. I mean, just not a lot of options that need to be filled were filled to their full potential. But again, Giants just, like usual, I feel, they just keep constantly letting their fans down. Just don't know how to make the right decisions. And also, we talked about how Daniel Jones already was just not a worthy pick. But again, what people seem to forget about is how the few good picks that they have, they're just all forgotten because of how controversial this terrible choice for Daniel Jones is. All right, so one last segment we have is how different was this 2019 draft from last year's draft?
Well, personally, I think from last year's draft, there was a lot of quarterbacks got drafted in the first round, but as in this year, not a lot of, mostly like defensive players mostly got drafted in the first round instead of quarterbacks. Like last year was more like quarterbacks, and then this year it's more like defensive players.
All right. If you were to ask anyone, you would definitely say that this was definitely a more defensively oriented draft this year. Not as much quarterback talent as there was last year. Last year, of course, was stacked with quarterbacks, stacked with offense. Didn't see many offensive players go in this first round. A few quarterbacks here and there, a few wide receivers just sprinkled in somewhere. But yeah, definitely a defensive-heavy draft this year. And well, that's all the time we have. We hope we provided you with a proper analysis of your favorite team and or players in the draft. I'm Luca Yanuzzi alongside Jason Pohl with Aaron Hook and Isaiah Ahumada saying farewell and thanks for tuning in to the Wayne Hills NFL Post-Draft Analysis Show.